Nevertheless, we'll come back to that as we've got Team Quirty taking on shots against Quantum Rage.
Is going to be Blotter.
Points to their
यहाँ हैशटैग बन रहना एक जरूरत है। ये जंग जीतना हर एक टीम का सपना है और इस सपने को पाने के लिए ये अपना सब कुछ पर लगाने को तैयार है। Pakistan is ready for the ultimate action.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. You are watching the PubG Mobile Pro League Pakistan 2022 Fall Split Grand Finals. Day number 1, of course.
Yes.
Joining along with me is going to be Blotter for this exciting week ahead. I mean, we're here finally after 3 weeks of gruesome, league days, and we've got our top 16 teams. Of course, a few disappointments out there, of which we're going to talk about later. But starting things off, how are you, mate?
Well, doing really well. Definitely looking forward to this entire 3-day affair right here in the Grand Finals fixes, because we started all of this journey 3 weeks ago with 20 teams, and now it's all boiled down to 16 teams, from which again the competition is going to be that much fierce because only 6 teams will move on towards the SA Championship.
Yep, only those top 6 teams, and of course this is the weekend where we have teams battling it out for that $100,000 prize pool, the majority of it, because of course, like in the league stages everybody got $2,500 for the participating amount, but this is where it all comes down to it. The moolah is on the line, the bragging rights to be the best team in the Pakistan region is on the line, and like Blotter explained, 6 teams, the 6 top teams from this region are going to be partaking in the PMPL as a championship in a few days, of course. I think around 12th of October, that's where we see all that action beginning. But we've got to talk about this. I mean, I did miss the last 2 days of that action, and of course due to some personal reasons which couldn't have been avoided, for which I'm apologizing to you viewers. But yes, I did hear some big things happened. Talking about big things, some big teams did really miss out on, but I'm pretty sure none of these teams, Lakshay, are going to be keeping anything aside to miss out on that $100,000 we're talking about.
Absolutely, Fixes, because again we do know that this is the most aggressive bunch of the group when it comes down to the 20 teams that are going to be, of course, witnessed right here in the 16 teams that will be playing the Grand Finals. And again, you talk about the chaos that definitely ensued in those final days of course, week number 3. Well, yes, it was absolute mayhem. I mean, 1 point difference is how we had 3x Esports jump in on the 16th position, where Meteor Shot Sky with 356 points were not able to, of course, participate. But along with that, it was all boiled down to, of course, the point structure itself, where so many teams walked away with a lot of chicken dinners. Yes, I mean, even back-to-back chicken dinners we saw, but all of it was that much more to thank was the, of course, elimination point, where the teams, the players, they focused on getting those elimination points, and that is what gave them the lead that resulted in them being in the top 16.
Oh yeah, and we've been talking about this, right? The point structure, which eventually, what I've been hearing, all that gossip and that rumors might, have a little bit of a change being made, maybe in the foreseeable future, or maybe not. But for now, this is what it is, right? The first position, in fact, the ones getting the chicken dinner gets 15, and so on, it reduces. But again, we've been talking about how things have panned out, right? It has been a tipsy-turvy ride for a few teams, and this is it. The squad rosters once again. Magnus Esports, I8, Regicide, Quantum Rage, our top 4 teams, like the way they've been playing. Literally, Regicide, they're kind of waking up from their slumber in the final week to dominate week number 3. And Magnus, they have been consistent as ever. Same can be said for Quantum Rage. But eyes will definitely be on I8 Esports. I mean, recently have managed to secure a sponsor and haven't really been having the best of days. But as we move on, Freestyle, Kuresh, T20 QWERTY, Team Bablu. Again, 4 big names coming in here. Kuresh making that beautiful comeback from week number 2 and haven't stopped ever since. QWERTY, Freestyle, still finding the groove with Freestyle. And in fact, Team Bablu performing really well in week number 3.
Absolutely, and again, when it comes down to the performance that was seen from Team Bablu, it almost felt like the previous Bablu is back because of the way they played the Miramar and the Wrangle game, and also the Sanok chicken dinner that they were able to get. But moving away from these top 8 teams, we move towards the side of Team TUF, Team Star, Team H2E, North Esports. Now, talking about Team TUF, they've had a tough journey, that's for sure, when it comes down to week 3. But overall, they had a perfect performance that, of course, can be seen from their side. There were definitely ups and downs, which I'm hoping to see would and should have been rectified right now in the grand finals. But talking about H2, we're talking about North Esports, the team's rotations are so spot on. Same is the case for Team Star as well. But moving away from that towards the side of the grounders, R3D Esports, 52 Esports, and the last but not the least, of course, is going to be 3x Esports. These in fact are the top 16 that are going to be participating in this 3-day affair every single day. It is going to be a painful thing to witness because, again, some teams are going to be creating the lead, but I really want to be able to see what we saw in week 3, where the competition was there, but the difference in terms of the points was not that much, and it was so very close.
Oh yeah, and you just got there, right? I was just about to spill the beans, but yeah, of course. I mean, the viewers that have tuned in regularly do know that there were bonus points, of being awarded to all these teams. So let's take a quick look at that. Of course, Magnus Esports, nonetheless, the toppers over here with Quantum Rage. The consistency, like I've been saying, has been speaking volumes of how good they've been playing. i8 Esports started this entire league with a banger, but then we kind of watched them fizzle down slowly. And you can see they're at the 3rd spot. Still, not really too far away. But Magnus Esports, like we've said, they do have that 78 points of a buffer with them. And that is definitely going to help them, try and build up an early momentum for themselves. And even if they kind of mess a game or two, it's fine. It's still recoverable for them. But no more than that. Because if you take a look a little down the order, it's pretty much around those 50s areas. And any of which team can really manage to get a chicken dinner and close out the gap completely.
Absolutely. And again, moving away from that towards the second page, where we do have the remaining 6 teams that we'll see in the grand finals. We have Team Star with, of course, 40 points to their name. Now, that is what Fixes did just mention as well. When it comes down to these teams, well, yes, there is a little bit of a slack pack that they are starting off with. At the same point in time, we've seen these teams like Team Star, North Esports. I was just talking about the rotations that they're able to make and are able to convert that into really good placement points and as well as, of course, elimination points. That is something that I'm looking forward to seeing in this week itself, in this grand final itself. And that perhaps could actually be the game changer that we anticipate from the side of Team Star, North Esports, the Grounders, R3D. These are all the teams that are sitting, of course, on the latter half of the leaderboard, but nothing taken away from them because they are here. And that's what matters the most. And now it all boils down to what they are going to do with the position that they are in and, of course, the grand finals matches that they have to play.
Of course, I mean, that is going to be so very important for all these teams, right? Especially the ones who are in the bottom 8. They will have to do anything that it takes, just go beyond their limits, just surpass it, need to get those chicken dinners. And I must say the same has to be told for even Team i8 as well, because again, drawing comparisons, week 1 and week 3, it's a heaven and hell difference of how they've been playing, right? Just look at the damage being dealt, look at that aggression, look at those difference in eliminations, everything just turned into half. And to make things even worse, look at the survival time, Lakshat. That is where my major concern lies. i8 have rarely been making it to the final stages of the game, and this time somehow they've gotten a few days of rest, enough I think to kind of rejuvenate and make sure that they start off this grand finals with the way they're supposed to and deliver like the way they were meant to.
Absolutely, I will definitely second that. In fact, somewhere in the back of my mind, I also want to keep this small little sliver of hope that it was all just a storyline creation from the side of i8, because final day, the way this team played, it was miraculous. It was, again, looking at a middle glass, and the hourglass was just turning in reverse as they were bringing back the performance that they had showcased in the previous 2 weeks on final day of course, week 3 itself. So, middle glass and the hourglass was just turning in reverse as they were bringing back the performance. Final day, the way this team played, it was miraculous. It was, again, looking at a middle glass, and the hourglass was just turning in reverse as they were bringing back the performance that they had showcased in the previous 2 weeks on final day of course, week 3 itself. So I really do have that small little sliver of hope that i8 are going to be starting to dominate. They are going to be bringing in that, again, prowess that we've seen from them in week 1 and week 2. And of course, the ill-fated week 3 is something that I do not want to see from them. But of course, only time will say and answer that. Because again, just a small little hint, if I can give to the viewers who were not able to chime in that final day. I8 started off on 17th position, if I'm not mistaken, 15th or 17th position. They were nowhere close to being in top 12. They were the difference in the points they had was too ludicrous to be able to overcome, but they did so by the end of the day. 4 games they had in their name, and they were in the top 12 as we saw them playing that Levick map. So again, it wasn't definitely in their favor, but they were there. So the bonus points that we're talking about from Levick maps, they have been able to accumulate those. Now I just want to see that momentum that was lost from them in week 3. That should change and should be brought back to how they played in week 1 and week 2.
We certainly hope that really happens, right? Every single I8 fan must be hoping for the same. And like we've always been telling, there are initial complaints with I8, in the latter stages of week 2 and week 3 have been all about how they've been taking and engaging in fights. Those huge splits and then Ghost getting picked off early on has been quite detrimental for this squad. And they really need to get over the ghosts of their past and make sure they have a really good start to the grand finals, because it's a fresh start. Of course, teams do have a buffer, and in fact I8 also does, right? 66 points, it's just 12 points separating them and Magnus Esports. So if somehow they can make sure that they deal with Magnus right from the very start and will not have to worry about them and get the chicken dinner, you never know. I mean, things could be back to square one. I mean, this little rivalry, but Magnus, what a team has it been, Lakshay, especially. If you ask me who has been the most consistent team, has to be undoubtedly Magnus. Of course, week number 1, they were not that good, but they were still very good. But week number 2 and week number 3 is where we really saw them surpassing the competition. But Regicide, now this is one of those teams that has really, intrigued my interest, because now they were one of those teams that were kind of, in the bottom half of the table. And suddenly, in week number 3, they wake up from their slumber and start delivering. I think the major difference over here, Lakshay, is what we see in the survival time. Look at that. And not just that, even the knocks, the damages, they're getting a lot more aggressive. They're not shying away from fights, and that is really turning out to be in their favor.
Absolutely. I mean, talk about week 3, it was definitely a limelight story for the side of Reside in terms of the way they were able to convert games for themselves. I mean, Erangel Chicken Dinners with 15 elimination points, Sandhawk games going in their favor with 11 elimination points, Miramar games going in their favor with 12 plus elimination points. I mean, this team was all over the place, and that too perfectly synergizing themselves and bringing in those points. And that is what mattered the most. The synergistic play that was showcased from the side of Regicide, especially compared to how they played in week 1 and week 2, it was surreal to see that this is the same exact team. But again, being able to do that once or twice in a week is all right, but being able to do that every single day in week 3 is where Regicide stood out completely, where we can clearly see, I mean, taking down big dogs like, of course, Bablu themselves, and taking on those perfect chicken dinners back to back is not an easy feat that Regicide were able to get. So that means they were able to, by the time we reached week 3, they were able to understand the lobby, they were able to understand what the rotations are being made and how their opponent teams are playing, and that in turn resulted in their synergistic performance just definitely bringing in the numbers in their favor. But again, all of that was the past. It was definitely looking good on paper. Statistics for week 3 are going to be going in favor of Regicide because of course, them being on top of the leaderboard for week 3, as well as the gameplay that we can clearly see right here in the highlights. But all of that will be brought down to how are the grand finals going to be. Again, these teams have had a little bit of a break. Before, we were looking at continuous games being played every single day with only a 1-day gap within the week itself. Now they've had that little bit of a gap. So I'm sure all of these teams in the lobby have, of course, looked at each other's gameplay. They're going to be that much more prepared to take on their opponents. But let's see how this post day itself is going to be going for the grand finals for these teams.
I'm really excited because, again, like you said, about Team Regicide, they are on a roll, right? They are on a hot form, and I really want to see how they deliver. Especially that first game is going to matter a lot for any of them. It could be anybody of them, right? You're talking about Miramar, because this time, surprisingly, we're not going to start off with a rank. So yeah, it's going to be Miramar where we kick things off, and it's going to be fun because anybody from these top 16 teams, they're going to be participating. And another thing, that's quite different from the league stages, we don't have groups anymore. It's these top 16 teams, and they will have to battle it across these 3 days of action. 18 matches is what it is going to take to accumulate as many points as they want. there will be few teams that are aiming for that glory, right, to become the best team in Pakistan right now. And there will be few others, that want to be in that top 6. Of course, I mean,
Oh,
we
yes.
will get to know that. I mean, we'll have a slight picture of that after maybe, let's say, day number 2. But regardless, it's all going to be, about a battle for the top, everybody just going after each other, no holds barred. And that is something that I'm absolutely going to love. But that being said, let's talk about the defending champions, 52 Esports.
Oh, yes.
From being a team that was nowhere in contention of really qualifying, suddenly in week number 3 they wake up and they start kicking butts, and that's how good they've been, Lakshay. I think we have to talk about them.
Definitely. I mean, 50 Esports, one thing that me and Shadow were constantly looking at and noticing from the side of their playstyle was the fact that they were always able to make them, no matter where on the map they are, no matter where the zone is, this team of 52 Esports will find themselves in the center or a very good contention of the zone itself, and then hold it steady, hold it very close to the core, and be very, very vigilant about their surroundings, and then finally start popping off heads when it matters the most, when it matters where the teams have now surrounded them all across the place. Till then, they're going to be very subtle, they're going to be very quiet, and that is that consistent play that we saw. Again, you just pointed it out right now, as I do have the points in front of me. I mean, you talk about week 1 and week 2 for the side of 52 Esports. Okay, 88 points, 79 points, decent performance. You compare that to 192 points in week 3 itself. Yeah, that's a clear indication that this team, again, in week 3, there were so many of these sort of teams that in week 1 and week 2 were doing so. But in week 3, they understood the lobby and were able to just mold themselves to play in that lobby, and how they played, it was so surreal to witness, like I said earlier. But again, moving away from that team towards a team comparison that we do have, of course, Quantum Rage against the players of Freestyle. Now, talking about Quantum Rage, we saw a little bit of a dip, actually. At least I noticed a little bit of a dip, even though they're sitting on the 3rd spot, of course, definitely. In terms of their playstyle, they have gone a little bit back. In terms of the aggressive streak that we saw in week 1 and week 2, they have fallen back a little bit. But again, nothing taken away from them, because after all, you look at the damage dealt, looking very consistent, number of points, elimination points, all of that working out perfectly in the side of Quantum Rage. But Freestyle, well, again, they were not that far behind, and that too with at least 30 to 50 second difference in terms of the average survival time.
Honestly, I really feel that this graph does not do justice to how good Quantum Rage has been, because I think there had to be another parameter of position points, because Quantum Rage is one of those teams that really thrives in that. You talk about week number 3, I mean, they were pretty impressive, like if you talk about the points, and that is how they've been liking to play. I think they've been one of those teams out of Pakistan that really do not believe in the concept of going in for a lot of eliminations. Rather, they kind of love playing those consistent games, keep racking up those position points, make sure that they're in the top 3, top 4 with maybe 3-4 finish points. That's good enough for them. But then when we're drawing that comparison with a team like Freestyle, now they've kind of been very volatile, to be very honest, right? Even if we take a look at the stats that we had previously, in every other aspect, it was Quantum Rage that had the better stats. It's just barring the fact that damage received was less, which I still think is a good thing for Quantum Rage. But again, for a team like Freestyle, we know where the real potential lies and how much better they can be. This could easily be one of those teams that is contesting for that crown. But the point here is that, are they going to be consistent at the very least? So if they do that, if they start racking up points, if they have a good start, Lakshay, I'm pretty sure Freestyle also has what it takes. But Quantum Rage, I really want to see if they just want to settle with being one of those top 4 teams, or they want to be the best amongst those top 4 teams. That is the fight that it is going to be about. But of course, we do have the schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to start off with Miramar. 6 matches lined up for you guys. Miramar, Sanhok, Erangel, Miramar again, then Sanhok. And we will be ending things down back in the Greenlands of Erangel. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those first events that we're casting. In fact, one of the first grand finals where we're starting things off with Miramar. So I'm pretty excited, which brings us to this little moment that we've been enjoying a lot. Lakshay, predictions, game number 1.
Are we still doing that? Are we still doing that for the grand finals? Let's let it go for at least day number 1 or not. All right.
Have your points increased, by the way, while I was absent?
Oh, no. No, no,
We
no.
haven't.
We got so close. I mean, it was almost honestly back to back to back. Me and Shadow got team selected. That became almost like a curse because those teams were really good. We spoke about FS, we spoke about Magnus, we spoke about Quantum Rage, we spoke about I8, and then as soon as we start picking them, they were the ones getting picked off at 16th position, at 15th position, and week number 3 was unpredictable. It was definitely chaotic. Most chaotic week of the bunch. Definitely it was.
Had to be, yeah.
But it was definitely a lot of fun, more than anticipated and expected. But right now, as you bring up the question, it is Miramar, of course, that we're going to be starting things off on. Now,
Yep.
on the map of Miramar, we have seen the performance from Bablu as well. That has picked up the pace. It was on day number 4, I believe, where they started off on Erangel, got a chicken dinner, moved on to Miramar, got a chicken dinner again. And so that is one of those contestations that can be brought in. But this being the grand finals,
Yeah.
where things I'm expecting are going to be taking a different turn altogether itself, I want to be looking at what I8 does. I really want to be keeping my fingers crossed, but I want to be able to see what I8 does in this first map itself of Miramar. By the time we reach game number 3 of the day, I think we'll have a clear indication of where the lobby is and how they are planning on approaching the grand finals, because we'll be done with all the 3 maps. But right now, for this game, match number 1 on Miramar, I'm going to be going with I8.
For you, it's going to be I8. I mean, you literally stole words from my mouth over here. But I want to be a little inclined towards Magnus. But, you know,
True.
since it's Miramar, I'm going to be a believer and go with North Esports. Because, you know, if you
Ooh,
talk
good
about North Esports, they've been one of the most consistent
Yes.
teams in Miramar. I think a team that has managed to secure a lot of chicken dinners. So I really
Most
feel that we are yet to see a lot out of North Esports of what they can do. But since it's their comfort zone, since it's the first game, and since, you know, it's just going to be these 16 teams inside the lobby, I'm pretty sure they must have come up with all those preps. But, you know, everything can just go to folly the moment we get that circle formed, right? Because we don't know. It's a fresh new week. How is the circle going to shift? You know, what are the, basic circles going to be? What's going to be the generic ones? Because there's every time that one trend that keeps coming every single week. We have witnessed different sort of shifts, right? Week number 3, I think
Exactly.
it was all about holding the center, and whichever team did that managed to get that chicken dinner. And week number 1, week number 2 had been mostly about teams playing from the edges. It was a sort of a mixed play, but inside the grand finals, it's going to be a whole different ball game, because yes, it is the moment that all these teams had been waiting for. No, sadly, we had to bid adieu to Meteor Shot, Sky Triple Esports, Team Faulty Devils, and TMW. I mean, it has to be feeling really, really bad if you are Meteor Shot Sky or an MSI fan right now, because barely missing out on 1 point, that's too hard to digest.
That's a tough one. And again, nobody wants to be in that predicament, but that is exactly what was showcased to them. Sadly, again, against their will, of course, because it was 3x Esports that put the nail in the coffin pretty much. And that is something that Mirashot definitely would not have anticipated. Now, going back to your pick itself of North Esports, right? I was just going through the notes that I have and looking at them itself. In the 3 weeks that we saw, Miramar was the map where North Esports were able to accumulate 3 chicken dinners, and the least amount of elimination was 10. With a chicken dinner, the least amount of elimination was 10. So yes, when it comes to the team being really rock solid in terms of their performance, I mean, on day 1 of week 1 itself, we saw them stealing that chicken dinner away, right? The cheeky play that North Esports brings for themselves is something that makes them, you know, stand apart on the map of Miramar, where the consistent play that we talk about, being so close to I8 on Los Leones, still being able to move all the way into those final moments of the game and get that game for yourself, is definitely an indication that this is a team to watch out for on Miramar. But along with that, we do need to find out how these teams have prepped for this final, the grand final itself, which of course the match number 1 is going to get started right now, as we do have the flight path on our screens. And this time around, it is going to be majorly favoring, or rather focusing towards the southern side of the map, for which I8 is going to be very happy, because Los Leones is right on top. Of course, Los Leones, we have North Esports down south at the same point of time. When it comes down to the final area that this flight path is taken towards, which is of course going to be Villa del Mar and Prison area, we've seen H2 actually make a little bit of a shift in terms of their drop towards that region as well, once or twice on this map. And Bablu, from week 1 itself, they've tried to get that sorted out. We saw from the zone in week 3 fixes is that it was a friend of nobody, not even the casters. Again, it was a chaotic one where every single time you would feel that, all right, this looks like a generic one. There should be a very good game, and then
And kaboom.
suddenly it would take a curveball shift. All right, fine. Teams are getting acclimatized. They're making that rotation, and then finally they're entering the zone, and zone's like, I'm sorry, I meant to go that way, and then suddenly another shift, and then another shift. Oh wow, back to back 3 shifts. It just thinned down the herd on the lobby in the lobby like crazy, and that's what the zone was doing. So let's see in the grand finals if that's going to be the trick that the zone will apply or not.
I mean, a few changes we getting to witness over here, especially in terms of how teams have dropped. I think majorly comes from the grounders, because Picado is one of those areas that the faulty devils used to love to take a drop at, but since they are not participating in the grand finals anymore, so that gives this big city all up for grabs, and the grounders were the ones to seize it first, because none of the other teams really wanted to change where they wanted to drop. So this flight path trajectory, I'm pretty sure, hasn't really bothered a lot of teams, right? Because they have dropped right where they wanted to be, and maybe teams like Regicide would want to move a little bit up north. But for now, everybody's well settled. Northeast Sports, I8, we've been talking about them going, dropping down at Los Leones from day one of this league itself. But it has all come down to the grand finals. And taking a look at the circle, it is kind of that, standard Picado circle, with that little tendency to either go a little bit north of where Picado is, or maybe towards that eastern side of Picado, which is going to favor teams like, let's say, Magnus, or maybe Freestyle, or maybe even the likes of the Grounders or I8, whoever rotates earlier.
Absolutely. For now, as we talk about the rotations itself, that is what we're going to be looking at coming in from the side of T20 QWERTY, as they are getting themselves acclimatized in terms of the way they want to be able to approach this zone and this game altogether. And when it comes down to their position itself, they're looking very comfortable down south of Hacienda for now. In their close vicinity is going to be a 2-man split approach coming in from the side of 3X, which they have been doing pretty much from week 1 itself. I've questioned it in my cast, but overall, every single time I've noticed that 3X Esports, they are always able to make it work. The 2-man split that is shown, that is seen from 3X, has always favored them. And in fact, they get a lot of opportunities as well. Now in week 3, there were a few kerfuffles that they went through where the early 2-man split resulted in them being left with only a 2-man squad first 5 minutes of the game itself. Thankfully, this is not one of those games. So they're going to be, of course, happy about that. Also, another point to perhaps bring up is going to be, where is the first blood situation going to be drawn? Every single time we know Los Leones is going to be surrounded by these two teams, I8 and Northeast. But this time around, can there be a change? Can there be a shift in terms of the way they like to play? And maybe being the two teams that are in close contestation every single time at Los Leones could be the ones who might just bring us the first blood situation. But another team to bring up is going to be Quantum Rage, a team that is so far out very comfortably for themselves. Nothing that they need to worry about, of course, for now, because they're towards the northern side of the zone and they have no team around in the vicinity, as we can see them slowly but surely getting their loot sorted for themselves. Along with that, as we do have the map on our screens, we can see that one of their teammates, Quantum Rage's teammate, Sigma Male, has already pushed on towards pretty much the center of the zone, trying to push towards the center of the zone. And well, I'm sure he's going to be pretty stonked with the rotation that he's made, because there was no team that he could spot out. And that is the clear opening that Quantum Rage have when it comes down to the rotation that can be seen from their side. But along with that, it is still going to be a very early point to bring up, because it's only 5 minutes into the game. When it comes to Quantum Rage, they've been consistent. They've been very much on point in terms of the way they're playing their games and converting those into points. 216 points is what they got in week 3. So overall, a very good week is what it turned out to be. In fact, the best one for the side of Quantum Rage was week 3 in terms of points. But now, all of that is off the past, because now we're in the grand finals, and the scheme that needs to be brewed in terms of the grand finals itself, it needs to change. And that change of pace can definitely be seen from these teams, as they have taken a slow paced approach into the early moments of this game.
Yeah, I think this is pretty much the grand finals starter match we kind of want to expect, right, from this region, because again, this is just the calm before the storm, right? Because we've not got any sort of a zone that would literally fry your brain cells up. It's a simple Picado circle that has been built up. So teams, majority of them are already well established in the circle. So no good reason to fight. But now you did bring that up while you were speaking about the fact that North Esports and I8, they've been dropping together ever since. But maybe this time we could witness a change. But maybe somebody could be the ones aggressing, trying to make a difference. Try to try to just shake things up a little bit. And I would love to see North Esports trying to do that, because let's be honest, right? They've got a target on their back.
Right.
They know that they somehow have to make sure they win this first game and try and get as many points as they can, and sort of cover up that little gap that has been built up between them and Magnus Esports. But at the same time, what, Lakshay? It seems like exactly what North Esports want to do. Maybe try and spot out one of those players and take him down and completely just wipe the floor over there. Because North Esports coming into the grand finals, they have nothing to lose but a whole world to prove that they're still one of the finest teams that Pakistan has to offer.
Most definitely, and that is something they are in a very good position to be able to do as well. They were able to spot out the rotation coming in from the side of the grounders, and also saw the players of I8, and it seems like Evil Boy is getting sprayed on upon. It definitely has to be the players of NES. We'll have to confirm that. It seems likely to be the case, as North Esports were able to spot out that rotation from the grounders. And look at Maxi. I mean, the flank that has been created from North Esports. Zamin, Avenger OP, along with their teammate, are all three up on top of that ridge. Roshan, and along with that, Maxi creating a flank angle is the opening that perhaps they were waiting for. At the same point of time, the grounders, now they need to be cautious and careful. I8, they're none the wiser, because as of now, in fact, they might have probably heard these shots taking place. But again, we'll talk about I8 once they are in the picture, because as of now, we have the grounders and NES to bring up and talk about. And on the other front, talking about teams that are, or rather the rotations that we are talking about from the teams, it seems like the grand finals is going to be a no change, as they are going to be making an early rotation towards the center of the zone. So many teams right now are moving in towards the center, as Fixes did just mention earlier as well, that we saw Picardo pretty much a generic center zone that is being showcased from this first zone itself, but it's just a matter of seconds before the zone constricts and shifts, and that is where the teams are going to be forced to take on the fights. Another 5 seconds, and we shall see the change as to where the fights are going to be drawn from the zone.
So a lot of teams, like anticipated, they're kind of taking on that central area for themselves, and much even shift, I must say. Nothing really out of ordinary, which kind of gives me even more insight to where the circle might be going. That is towards that eastern shift that we have been talking about, happening in Miramar. The grounders have themselves positioned at a very promising location, a little bit of that high ground, a lot of vision around each other. All they have to do right now over here is to defend the center with all their might, because a lot of teams would want to contest that. But then again, talking about the teams coming in from the peripheries of the circle, we've got R3D, Quantum Rage, both of them trying to enter in at the same time, and well, Avenger